First of all, it's an honor to discuss these papers, but I'll definitely be doing it on short notice as pinch hitter. And so I'm going to speak very briefly. So there's a gigantic school choice literature, which we're very honored to have two of the pioneers of in the room and many other people who contributed to it. And the fascinating thing about this literature for me is that it really has, like many of the, the first really big applications of market design, has done an incredibly good job of sort of solving all of these different detailed facets and adjustments on problems, right? Market design, in many senses, is often, or marketplace design, is concerned with our ability to think about the building and rebuilding of markets where we have a sense of the entire problem. When we can actually go in and design the marketplace, whether we're doing it in an online platform context or in a school choice design. And school choice has this incredible proliferation. There are hundreds of papers now on different market design contexts, different sorts of affirmative action programs, say, or other constraints on the system, maximizing different welfare objectives. But a lot of them still live in this sense of like a very constrained problem. It's sort of, we understand, we go into an exact market and we're solving a static problem. And school choice is really nice for static problem solution because in some sense, the problem is solved once a year, right? You have students who grow to some particular age that they need to get assigned to schools. They're all entering schools at the same time. It's about as nice as for a constrained environment as you can get. Teachers may be the same. Right? What happens with teachers, at least their first entry into jobs, they graduate from college or some other, some master's program, and they need to be assigned to schools. And that all, same as the medical residency match, happens sort of on an organized clock. But of course, what both of these papers are reminding us sort of individually and together is that these problems do link to the outside world in really meaningful ways. And so, first of all, thinking about Parag's paper, we have this, one of the assumptions is that people might get priced out of the neighborhood. And so if you're living in an environment where there is social housing or something of the sort, then maybe you can recoup some of the benefits. And we see this in the gentrification world as well. Relatedly, this links up with what we'll hear tomorrow with the assignment of public housing. Maybe these two types of interventions need to be thought about together. Again, just as these are both marketplace design interventions, but they're deeply linked. Teacher allocation, you could imagine, would have exactly the same types of general equilibrium effects that Chris Avery and Parag are finding. If you somehow take, suppose you do an intervention that actually maximizes quality under John's stylized model, well then maybe the parents will leave the formerly good school because they have exit options, and so you might not gain all of the welfare gains that you imagine. And this needs to be measured and processed and thought about, and it's hard because, again, we don't know any of the metrics. So first of all, we have a clear call to action that market design needs to engage much more deeply and into the future with the applied microliterature. We need to start understanding lots of the questions that live, of log n distance and then even O of n distance around the problems that we're studying when we think about circumscribed marketplace design. And then, and this is something for which I have no answers as yet, but I think we should all be thinking about, we really need to understand sort of when thinking about general equilibrium effects of market design matter. I think, Parag's papers made a very clear case that here, in school choice is a context where the first order problem, the allocation of students to schools, we weren't thinking about general equilibrium, and that was almost assuredly correct, but that it has these second stage general equilibrium effects, and they might take a while to price into the market. I'm sure you've thought about the empirical question of how exactly long it takes to capitalize school choice programs into housing values and things like this, but now sort of, once you move past the first stage, new problems appear, the markets change. You see a version of that in kidney exchange too. It's the case that over time, the people left in the kidney exchange pool get harder to match, and this has caused all these transformations sort of sequentially, even at the rate of, since I've been in the field, which hasn't been that long, you've seen tremendous evolution in the types of kidney exchange problems people are solving and the way they're solving them. But meanwhile, we think about Canis's food supply context. Sure, this has general equilibrium effects too. Like, you imagine if people get more access to food, then maybe they're going to participate in the labor force more. But somehow, at least intuitively, and again, I have no formal theory, we might think that that seems a little bit further out, right? That at least from the state of food supply and food allocation to food banks today.
I just want to say one thing about each paper. So John's paper, I think the right way to frame the problem, and if anybody thinks they know how to solve this model, I'd love to call them a co-author. If you really think that the teachers have some private information, not only about where they like to teach, but where they'd be successful teaching, you can think of a mechanism that has base pay and then has within league kind of percentile performance pay based on outcomes. And you can say, let people send their applications knowing that if I choose to teach in this league, there'll be a certain base pay, and I'll compete against people that will show up for the bonus pay. And the base pay allows you, if you are the social planner and want to pay more for people to work with kids where they're disadvantaged and you think the marginal gains are worth more, you can do that. And the competition allows you to only have people show up who think they can win the competition so that they're well matched. What's the optimal mechanism of that flavor is something I have yet to figure out, but I think it's the right way to think about the problem. What I would say about Parag's paper is there's an old paper that was presented here, I think 6 or maybe 10 years ago in a conference where you were here, that Bentley presented, that talked about if you're going to have school choice in terms of private school choice, is it good or bad to allow the private schools to have control over who shows up, or do you force them to pick randomly? And I wasn't exactly clear on the mechanism in your school choice thing about how people got assigned to schools. But it seems to me that part of what's going on here is however you were doing it, parents weren't able to satisfy their demand for homogeneity. And so it seems like there's some kind of continuum where you go to a school and you say, okay, this many slots can have some type of party and this many slots have to be assigned randomly. And then you can vary these it's like a tuning parameter on how much freedom the school has to create the sorting that the parents want. And it may be that the optimal system is somewhere in between these two stark endpoints. And that the key thing for the market designer is to figure out the optimal set of rules for allowing the principal to pick who goes to his school. Or how much you constrain his ability to pick. Instead of, give him complete control or none at all. And now I'll shut up, I'm sorry.
You can keep going if you want, Derek. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'm curious what if any organizations or processes exist for communicating with plurality of school designs. Most schools are basically structured the same way, but especially the past 10 years or so, might have different pedagogies, use some technology. But it doesn't seem like for teachers choosing where to work and for students, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of consumer information that I don't know.
Maybe Katerina can speak about this, but in Europe there is an entire network called Matching and Practice where we collect all the information on different types of school choice mechanisms used across Europe. And there's it's kind of a body of, I'm guessing Paraga's doing the same in the US, but there's a kind of a body of evidence there. So, maybe one of you can talk about this. Anybody else? Yeah.
Question for Parag. Do we
see any evidence of people opting out of school choice in private schools and kind of endogenous building in private schools in these cities? Because that can be another form of leakage that would be interesting to model.
You guys want to answer? Jonathan, you want to go first?
Sure. So, like Derek suggested, I think that, and I mentioned it during the talk, I think that paper performance and Derek's previous work on paper percentile, like the contest, competitions is a very promising policy to improve the allocation of teachers to schools and to solve critical engine problems in teacher effort and things like that. I think that when thinking about the optimal allocation of teachers to schools, and maybe it wasn't super clear with disease as the outputs, but it's important that even if teachers know that if the better teacher in a single model knew that they would be better at the better school, it might still be socially optimal for them to take a hit and go to the school where they're less good because the comparative advantage is greater there. So I think the challenge with using paper performance to improve allocations is to really be confident that you're paying them based on their comparative advantage at school rather than their absolute advantage. In terms of teacher information, I don't know that we.
It's paper percentiles relative performance.
For a set of students that necessarily.
No, it's relative performance among the teachers. It would induce them to sort on comparative, not absolute advantage. That's the whole point.
But it depends who you're defining in comparison to. Anyway, but in terms of teacher information, I think that they use a lot of proxies. So obviously they know geography. They also are sorting on things like traditional charter schools, but I do think that there's not great information for teachers.
Rob?
Okay, great. Well, thanks, Scott. That was an impressive impromptu discussion. So to start with that, I mean, I think you made a really nice point about a theme emerging from today, which is this feedback between the allocation system and the participants in the system that we've seen in the kidney case, sensitized patients, and the food bank case, and even in the refugee case. And that's something that we're trying to take on in our project here. Let me start with Derek. So Derek mentioned this paper by Bentley McCoy and Miguel Urquiola. It's I think a great paper actually. It just came out in AER. What they try to study is parental demand when there's incomplete information. So that's kind of related to what you commented. How are these markets going to work if families don't know what a good school is for them, what a good teacher is for them? And the argument that they're putting forth, which I think is quite relevant, is schools that can screen can select on, basically on the peers being good and therefore develop these positive reputations, and therefore, they put their investments into the screening technology rather than into the productive dimensions. And I think that fact accounts for a lot of the disappointing evidence we've seen on the performance of some other schools. So that's something that is not in our model. I mean, the parent demand is stripped down here. It's just you choose where to live, so that's much simpler than what they were taking on. And everything is simply information. The second comment you made is something I didn't get a chance to talk about, but the direction we're headed. So what you saw is this contrast between the ends and the middle. So people in the middle like school choice in this model, and the people at the ends do not. So could you design the lottery in a more sophisticated way to accommodate these people who are now unhappy? For instance, by keeping the high types in the system, by having things like exam schools or a way for them to self-segregate. Or, on the other hand, a popular policy is for the low types, there's some provision to make it easier for them to get in. And districts are now doing things like free lunch priority and things like that. That's a direction we want to head towards. I mean, whether you'll be able to map from this to exactly what priorities you want to use, it will depend strongly on what social welfare function you have in mind. And I should say my prior is, I still think there's going to be a lot of fine-tuning that is going to be very fragile. It makes me somewhat, even though I've spent a lot of time working on this myself, I mean, it makes me pessimistic at the kind of long-term trend that we have these choice systems in a lot of cities, and educational outcomes have not improved simply because of allocation processes. I mean, the big change that has improved educational outcomes in urban cities is new suppliers. I mean, the entry of alternative types of schools, like private schools, and things like that. if anything, I mean, one lesson that comes out of this analysis is those kinds of things can do a lot more than tweaking who, what type gets assigned where. So, I mean, that's somewhat of a pessimistic.
I just want to make one thing. I was actually talking about another paper about it in the JPE where they said take the Chilean voucher system and now consider a bunch of different rules that constrain or don't constrain who you take out of your applicant list if you're oversubscribed. And so their question was, what set of rules for dealing with the queues would make the whole voucher system maximally efficient? And it seems like there might be something in the logic of that model that you could apply in this public choice model to say, what would be the set of priority rules that would be in the middle of these two extremes that would maximize this outcome? Because here you're paying for a house, there you were paying tuition. And so the rules there were, could you pay extra, could you choose out of the line, not choose out of the line, etc.
I'll take a look at that. There was one last comment I didn't address. Alex, you brought up this question, what do we know about private school competition? And there's a great anecdote from the work that I was involved in with Al in New York City when, the first year they adopted deferred acceptance, there was some delays in releasing the announcements and placements, and so private schools took advantage of that and said you have to file your deposit at the school prior to when they announce the placement. I mean, so there is this competition. I think, the evidence is very strong, I'd say, on the high type effect and this exit. On the low type effect, this displacement